It's dangerous and even deadly, and it's flooding our neighborhoods. From the city to the suburbs and beyond, it's time for everyone to know the facts about fentanyl. Grammy-winning producer and rapper Timbaland shocked many in a new Rolling Stone interview by revealing he overdosed on prescription pills 3 years ago. This comes as the music industry and fans are reeling from the drug overdose death of up-and-coming Soundcloud sensation Lil Peep. He was 21 years old. One of the fatal pills may have been tainted with fentanyl, a synthetic opioid 50 times more potent than heroin. Law enforcement agencies are fighting hard to keep it off the streets, but Bronx District Attorney Darcel Clark tells me it's turning up everywhere.
These dealers are mixing fentanyl not only in heroin, but cocaine, pills. They're selling them pills as one thing, and they're pure fentanyl, and people are dying.
Hot new music producer Buddha the Future has worked with many big names like Rick Ross and Dave East. He hopes Timbaland's admission and Lil Peep's death will open some eyes.
And I think we're going to start seeing more people that you didn't know was addicted to it trying to get off and seeing the effects of getting off.
Buddha knows what addiction looks like. He lost his mother, Ana Ubiera, 2 years ago from a drug overdose. 2 weeks earlier, she had just received word that she had beaten stage 3 cancer. He wants drug users to wake up before it's too late.
For you to take it socially and think that you cannot be addicted to it, you're wrong. I believe most people that do indulge in these drugs think that they're not addicts, and that's the first step to going downhill.
I hit the streets of the South Bronx with former NYPD undercover narcotics officer Darren Porcher. He told me this community has been ground zero for the drug epidemic and ignored for many years. But that could be changing.
As you can see behind me, we have an open-air drug market during a time where kids are getting out of school. So the police department does play a role in this, educators play a role in this, and parents play a role.
So why would people use a drug that could kill them? And why is the crisis worse than ever before? Let's find out what our panel has to say. Joining us, Darren Porcher, PhD. He's a former NYPD lieutenant and undercover narcotics officer, and he's also a criminal justice professor. Darren, great to have you.
Always a pleasure. Thank you.
Also with us is Nurse Noel. She's a registered nurse, critical care and trauma nurse. She appears on the Dr. Oz show. You've probably seen her on many other shows, sharing her wisdom and her experience. And she's also a contributor to O Magazine. Nurse Noel, great to have you.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much. Also with us is Buddha the Future. He's a hip-hop music producer. He's worked with many of the biggest names in the business, from Rick Ross, The Game, Neo, Meek Mill, and many others. And Buddha has long been a supporter of street soldiers and involved with the community and our community events. But we especially wanted him here today to talk about the loss of his mother to a drug overdose. So Buddha, thank you so much for speaking out.
Thank you for having me.
Really appreciate it. Darren, I want to start with you on this. Why are we seeing so much of this drug fentanyl right now?
Well, initially, fentanyl was coming from China, and it seemed like the target area for the United States was Ohio, but then it spread out vastly within the United States. Now the cartels from Mexico have gotten involved with the distribution of fentanyl. But what fentanyl does is, because it's so cheap, it boosts the grade of heroin. So many dealers that are selling heroin would acquire fentanyl to boost the heroin that they have on the street. And then we look at the social media, a lot of the social constructs tend to support this opioid addiction that we have in the United States. It's an epidemic that remains prevalent within our society. So that the social piece coupled with the spread from the Mexican cartels is creating this epidemic that we have here in the United States.
And the flood that we're seeing right now, which according to the DEA is worse than cocaine during the crack epidemic. They're saying there's so much here. But Nurse Noel, what do these opioids do to the body? Because some of the comments I get on social media every time I discuss this topic, people are like, why don't they just kick it? Or it's their choice to do it. But why do they seem to these drugs seem to have such a grip on people?
Well, opioids are highly, highly addictive, and they work with the brain sensors and the brain receptors, and they secrete dopamine, which causes a euphoric type feeling, and it feels good. And that's why people relapse, because they want that feeling again. Fentanyl is 50 times stronger than heroin and 100 times stronger than morphine. So we see a lot of people coming in to the emergency room and in trauma, if they make it to that point, you know, with a lot of depression.
Right, because they can, you can overdose. So it's true, you can overdose just on your first dose. Could be your last dose.
It can be definitely be your last dose. There's a fine line between therapeutic and mortal doses.
And what can happen, and depending on probably a lot of other factors too, like the person's weight, right, their size, how often they've used.
Exactly. So it depends on, a smaller person will take less, it'll take less for them to overdose than a larger person. And also if you have other drugs in your system or alcohol, mixing drugs definitely causes a heightened effect.
Wow. Buddha, tell us about the effect that your family has suffered through with this drug plague, and your mom.
We recently lost my mom about 2 years ago, and it was due to her lifestyle and alcohol and drug abuse, with the combination of taking pills as well, and along with her taking chemo medicine pills. So the combination of cocaine, drinking, pills, and the lifestyle with the body weight and going through certain, you know, medical issues, my mom ended up passing away 2 years ago. And
I'm so sorry.
April. No, thank you. And since then it's been tough, but I just want to bring awareness to that and let people know that, you know, the combinations of all those components is very deadly.
Now, you're from the Bronx, which is the area, according to everyone we've talked to about it, is kind of ground zero for this whole drug thing, and also for the fentanyl too. What changes did you see in your mom? Like, how did you know that, you know, she wasn't the way she used to be, or it was starting to become a problem?
Throughout the time, I felt like the accessibility and the consumption is so quick and easy and accessible for you to ingest. Is like, it's hard for you to monitor people on it. So throughout the years, you've seen her behavior change from the 90s to the 2000s, and then as the pill increase began to, you know, become more, you see the changes in her body and how her body deteriorated, and she went directly to the hospital.
And did she start using was she using heroin initially?
It was more cocaine and pills and alcohol, but the combination of all three was fatal. More so with the alcohol and the cocaine while taking pills. And
which is what Nurse Noel said, is the combination.
The combination created blood clots in her lungs, and she died from not being able to breathe. But the actual pill intake with the alcohol made the effect happen faster.
Now, this was especially tough for you because she had just won the battle with cancer, though, right?
Absolutely.
Tell us about that.
It was 2 weeks. She beat stage 3 cancer. We was actually, you know, happy celebrating that she, you know, just had one of her biggest victories. And I think in the midst of her celebrating, she started to drink and take pills, and the effect of the pill and drinking caused the blood clots in her lungs.
And that was it. And did you see a change in her personality over the years through this too?
Yeah, especially when she overcame cancer, it was like a relief. But I kind of felt like she was getting over of her old lifestyle. But the celebration aspect of her just wanting to be in her mood or zone, like kind of like a lot of these artists, you know, take drugs for an escape. That was her final exit. So
I'm so sorry about that, but we appreciate you talking about this, because it's a lot of times too, it's not something, and this is something that's affecting people
all
across
ages.
Generations, all ages, all economic groups, all ethnic and racial groups, men and women. It's like everybody has a story about it, but we're going to talk more about that. This is Street Soldiers. I'm your host, Lisa Evers. We'll be right back. Even if they know it could kill them?
But even if this is a level 10, they'll say from 1 to 10, they say if this is a level 10, they'll say it's a level 3. We need it stronger.
Let's talk about the culture, because the people talk, well, hip-hop culture, the music, it used to be drug dealers, now it's drug users. We just heard from Timbaland. He said he nearly died of a drug overdose from pills about 3 years ago. As you're around the culture, you're in the studio late at night with these guys. Is it as big a part of the culture as it seems to be, just judging from the music?
I feel like certain individuals that indulge in that lifestyle happen to be very famous, and it is taking a toll on our culture. And I feel like the accessibility of it, it's kind of like a new accessory to hip-hop, to some of these artists, where it's looking like it's part of their uniform. And do I think it's right? No, but for some reason, it's infiltrated the culture very
So
rapidly.
maybe popping bottles has been replaced by popping pills.
I'm not going to say replaced, but it's definitely been added to the roster.
And what about go ahead.
I don't think it's just a hip-hop issue. When
Right.
we look at the death of Prince, for example, Prince died from a fentanyl overdose. When we look at Lil Peep, who died relatively recently, I mean, he was someone that spoke quite freely about drug use, depression, and things to that effect. And we draw back to the different communities within New York City. And I give you an example of an area we refer to as the Hub in the South Bronx.
Where we
which
did
has-
the heroin
right,
report.
It has the highest overdoses in the city. And so a lot of people don't realize what drug dealers do. When they sell you drugs, there's no barometer, there's no scale that tells the potency of a drug that they're selling. They use an addict in the neighborhood. That addict is the barometer for how strong or how potent the heroin is. And so oftentimes the heroin wants the best stuff that they can get. Even if this is a level 10.
Even if they know it could kill them?
But even if this is a level 10, they'll say from 1 to 10, they say if this is a level 10, they'll say it's a level 3. We need it stronger because they want something bigger and stronger. So when it goes back to this opioid addiction, I mean, it's something that's been plaguing our system, or I want to say the accessibility has been like overwhelming because everyone can get it. Buddha just mentioned he works in the hip hop industry, and oftentimes you have people that just have it. It's just a place that we're going in. One of the things that I mentioned is Chris Christie, Governor Christie, is on this presidential panel to combat the addiction. This didn't come into play until it extended into the more affluent communities.
But-
Suburbs.
It did, but when,
Right,
when
it did.
happened, when it
Exactly,
happened
and
in
that's the
areas
point,
like I
exactly.
mentioned, the Hub, no one really cared.
No one cared.
Now
When it
we
was
see
mostly
a
black and
greater
Latino people.
level of attention
Right.
that's paying attention.
Right, and we talked with the Bronx DA Darcel Clark about that, and she said yes, it's true. You know, nobody paid attention when this was in the urban areas, predominantly black and Latino, low income, and she said, you know, now that it's in the suburban areas, there's many more white faces that are victims. It's getting a lot of attention, and she said, but you know what? I'm going to use that to my advantage and have that money and bring that back into my community, which they're doing in the Bronx, which is interesting to see. But Nurse Noel, you do education is a big part of what you do
Yes.
as well too. Are we giving, you know, is the wrong message going out? Because the fact of the matter is, drugs make people feel better. That's what they say, at least initially. That high feels good.
Or it gives
So-
them an escape of reality.
Or gives them an escape of reality. So are we not explaining the reality?
We are, but once it's in the scope of medicinal practice. So if you have an illness, if you're a trauma patient, if you come in with, you know, an MVA, motor vehicle accident, or a gunshot wound, it's warranted to give an opioid.
Right.
It is, but you know, not a regular person that's on the street just wanting to get high. It's going to have a different effect on them.
Let me ask you this, Darren, from a street perspective, in Buddha too, it's like if people can't get it that way, they're going to turn to the streets. It's not that hard to find. How hard is it in the Bronx to find out where to buy pills?
You can
The
buy
streets
anything in
has
the Bronx.
always been. The streets have always and continue to be that place, that reservoir for people to get it. The only issue, I shouldn't say the only issue, but the main issue is you're now receiving unclean substances. And it goes back to who you're purchasing, who are you acquiring these drugs from, and that is germane
Right, it's
when
not
we
like a
take
box
in
of cereal where you're
consideration.
going to
Right.
have this many grams of
Right.
carbohydrates or
Right.
this grams of protein or whatever. But Buddha, what about just the mentality? Do you feel, and you work with the youth a lot too in the community, do you feel that just seeing all these, you know, we've seen famous people die from it. We've seen, you know, we're just seeing it in the music and in the videos, and especially in the music and the lyrics that people listen to over and over and over. Does that kind of normalize it, make it seem like it's okay?
No, I don't think so.
No?
I don't think it makes it okay, but it
Seem okay?
it seem okay, but it also shows how much of it is being done because it's trying to become part of the cool factor. So it's an awareness piece and something we should be, you know, have our finger on because it's obviously it's being presented now because it's affecting the suburbs, but this has been something that's been going on, and I think now the fact that it's being marked as cool should be something we should be paying attention to. Like, nah, y'all bugging.
Definitely. Nurse Noel, in terms of what it does on your body, is it typical from what you've seen with overdoses in the ER that people just do one drug and don't drink, or they do one drug and they don't smoke weed, or do people typically combine things?
People typically combine drugs, and the major side effect for fentanyl is respiratory depression. So it stops.
What does that mean?
It stops your breathing.
some people say people do drugs because they just want to get high and feel good and party and get in their zone and do whatever they want to do. Other people say it's connected to mental health issues. What's your take on that, from what you've seen?
From what I've seen, depression is, it kills. It kills people because they look for, ways to get out of it. They look for ways to, they look for exit strategies. So a lot of times drugs is their choice. And opiates kind of, it brings you down. It brings you, gets you mellow, and it works with the receptors in the brain. So a lot of people, they choose drugs.
Buddha,
Do
with
you
Lil
think
Peep,
that this is more of a public health issue, and as opposed to people just necessarily wanting it? You ever think that you just get people that they get so caught up psychologically, whereas they need it, and it becomes something, it becomes a dependency, and it's just difficult for them to pull back, as opposed to just, look, I want it. Do you think that's possibly the case?
Well, with opioids, your body craves it.
Right. So, but it goes back to you, whether you sometimes.
and if you don't get it, you get physically sick, right?
I
If
find
you
a lot
don't get
of
it,
people are not even getting high.
Right.
What it's doing, it's just giving them a level of sanity. Because just in law
Wait a
enforcement,
minute.
After a while.
they believe that it's
initially.
providing them with
They believe
a
it.
level of sanity.
Buddha.
In law enforcement, we have this saying is supply meets demand. If you don't have a demand, there won't be a supply in play.
Right.
And so, unfortunately, the demand is coming from a lot of these people that are suffering through addiction, and that's where this is coming from.
But also keep in mind, I'm sorry to cut you off, the effects it has on the body and the overall usage when you constantly take it, and then when you completely stop, it has a strong effect on the body, and sometimes people want to avoid that pain of going through the withdrawal.
And that's what I mentioned.
Well, what do you
they
go through
feel
the-
a perceived level of sanity when they do ingest
Well,
these
people
drugs.
will say- people
Not to
say-
say that
Not
they are
initially.
saying.
Wait, let me get back about this.
Not initially. You don't take drugs and just for normalcy. You take drugs initially to get high. You
I'm
will
not
get
doubting
high
that, but you do
initially.
get to a
to
certain
separate
point.
from reality.
Once it gets to dependency,
then-
that's
Okay,
when
but
you're taking it.
let me bring this back to, so they take the drugs to get high. Then they reach a certain maintenance level, right, with these opioids.
Exactly.
And then if they don't maintain that level,
Get
then
sick.
they start getting very physically violently sick,
Yes.
like when they go through withdrawal.
Bedridden,
So they have to get,
throwing up.
did you see that with your mom?
More so of her just, she would want to drink and take pills more than actually eat. And certain things, like, I remember she was addicted to Zantac, and she wouldn't be comfortable unless she had Zantac, her drugs, and beer, and then ate. So it became a point where she couldn't eat until she had Zantac, and then that's a whole nother addiction with a pill, just something that simple over the counter that you can get at a grocery store.
Right.
And it's because of the effect it starts taking on your body and the acid reflux, and then you use the bathroom a lot, and then you can't ingest anything because you're either throwing it up or you're using the bathroom when you have diarrhea. So then that takes an effect, and sometimes people want to get away from that.
Buddha, what do you, what message do you really want people to take away from all this?
Just be aware of the lifestyle that you're choosing to live, and know that there's consequences. Drugs have no age limit as far as like the effects it could have on you. Obviously, my mother was 59 years old, very young, and we just had an artist in the hip hop community die at 21. So just be aware of the combination of alcohols and drugs, and just the drugs that you're intaking. Just be aware that it could be fatal.
Definitely. Well, I want to thank all of you for being with us.
Thank you.
For this episode of Street Soldiers. Dr. Darren Porcher, thank you so much for being with us. Nurse Noel, appreciate you being with us. And Buddha the Future, thanks
Thank
so much
you.
for sharing those very personal memories and warnings. We really appreciate it.
Honored to
Thank
be
you
here.
all. And remember, use your mind. It's your best weapon. I hope it's your only weapon. I'm Lisa Evers. Let's push for peace.